we've gone through the why you want to do something. We've talked about some of the roadblocks and potholes. Now we're going to talk about your family's roadmap. And this'll be more about your goal setting, because before you can move forward, you have to know where you're going. You don't get in a car and say, oh yeah, I'm going to go to a restaurant for Thai food, and not pick the specific spot, right? If you told your GPS system, take me out for a Thai food, maybe Siri might say, okay, let's go here. But, even Siri has to pick an endpoint at that point, right? Like, so you have to know where you're at. You need to know, where you're currently at, where the destination is, and what the roads are in between. So our starting point, our point A in the point A to B continuum, is thinking about where we are in the life cycle of a complex needs parent. And by that, I mean, are you a new parent? Or perhaps you're a new parent who just got, or you're maybe not a new parent, they're 2 or 3 years old, but you just got your diagnosis and you're just starting to realize what the implications of that are for the trajectory of the child's life. Or have you gone through that part? Maybe you're at daycare and preschool needing to figure out how maybe your child isn't being accepted in different daycares, or maybe you need special care for your child to be able to manage daycare. Or are you at school age with your child, and do they need to be homeschooled? Are they needing extra supports after school? Do they need therapies? All those sorts of things. What are the pieces? Where are you at? Maybe you've gone through school age and you're at the adult transition spot. This is where I'm at right now with my son. He's 17 and a half, and it's the natural point where if a neurotypical child were home, there might be a few more years they hung around, but essentially they're starting to use their own wings and fly out of the nest a little bit. And you're starting to think about, okay, I have more time and flexibility. If your child is not going to be independent, that may be a different picture for you. You may be needing to think about, okay, are they going to stay home? Are they going to have a separate residence? Are they going to stay with family? What's the living situation going to be for them as an adult? What can we afford? Do we want group home, or do we want to have them stay here in a are we renting? Are they renting? Those sorts of pieces about the adult transition and empty nester bed. Then or maybe you're already past that, and you've settled your child in their circumstance, but now you've realized, oh my goodness, I've just spent however many years completely caregiving and not focusing on myself. And now I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I don't know where I'm going to go next. I don't know how I'm going to pay for my retirement. I don't know how they're going to pay for me if I need end of life care. Is my child going to be able to take care of me? All of these types of questions have different financial pieces that we need to think of right as early as we can. And just a special note on siblings, there's I've seen a lot of variation in families, but it ranges from the sibling. Yeah, I know I'm going to take care of my brother or sister, or maybe you are a brother or sister of a person with complex needs. And in other families, it's been a lot harder, and or the parents, and the siblings may need some space and time and growth in their own path, or the parent just feels strongly that they don't want for their child to not have their own ability to choose, and so they shouldn't necessarily automatically be responsible. There's quite a wide range of ways to approach siblings, but thinking about what the sibling of your child with disability might need is a whole other thing. Maybe they need their own supports. It's it can be quite complicated. One thing we forgot on here is, are you grandparent to a special child and maybe don't know what your adult children of your grandchildren need? Maybe your children are fine, but your grandchildren have special needs. How do you handle that? What are you going to leave as a legacy? Those sorts of things. So all of these pieces have financial components to them. Whether it's, childcare or therapy or equipment or housing or, activities, all, think about what the needs are going to be at the stage, and then the needs and pressures that you have at the stage you're at right now, and what needs you might have in the upcoming stages. So then I want you to take a look at the point B. So where do you want to be? That should say in the life cycle of a complex needs parent. When you think of, you're in daycare now, daycare stage now. When you think of the adult transition, what do you think of? Have you thought of it? What's the picture? What would it look like? Maybe you haven't wanted to think about it, or maybe you've wanted to think about it but just been too overwhelmed, and now you can take a chance to take this moment to go, okay, well, what does it look like? What is our end goal, and what do we think? And of course these will evolve as the child gets closer and their level of autonomy. If they're relatively independent and verbal and can manage with just a few supports, then they're going to have a lot more input and say and direction over their future. If you have a nonverbal low functioning child, or a child that needs heavy medical supports, you're probably going to be making more of a decision as a parent, and working with them to make sure that they're comfortable with it. So you need to sort of think about, or talk with them about, what the picture of where they want to be is, what they'll need when they're there, what that will cost, and then what's the first thing that you could do to move towards that, and keeping in mind time sensitivity. So for example, and when it needs to be started by, like, maybe you don't need an apartment for your child right now, or maybe you don't need a vehicle for your child right now, or maybe you don't need an adapted bike for your child right now, but at some point you might. Well, how much is it going to cost, and how long will it take to save for it? Does that saving need to start now? What about your retirement? Does your retirement, are you going to be able to wait until later to start saving for your retirement? Probably not. Most people recommend that the earlier the better. So think, are there times by which you have to spend money? That sometimes there's funding that's in place for youths that is not in place for adults. And you have to think about how to make sure that you maximize that money and spend it all before that money runs out, so that you get the full advantage of that and can use. So just think about all of the pieces and in what order they might need to go. So we won't get into a huge amount of detail, because we do this, it can take quite some time, and what you're here for is the top 5 vehicles. So we do help people chunk this down, and that makes it easier, just like laying out a daily routine for your child. Okay, this is breakfast, this is getting ready, this is chores, this is schoolwork, this is how the day is going to roll. Laying out a financial, plan for yourself over a year or 5 years or 10 years is not a bad idea. And then breaking them back down into what you're doing, this year, this quarter, this month, or this week, choosing which vehicle, which strategy, which way to earn money can help you meet that particular goal. Taking a look at how it fits in your day. Taking a look at what your general financial practices are now. Like, do you How much do you go out to eat? How much do you, and obviously special needs parents usually end up in the drive-through, but what are you spending your money on now? And do you have an automated savings plan where a certain amount comes out and just goes away into savings? How these things can be connected to our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And our program also works with you in sort of like an accountability buddy way. So we help you like get all these plans sorted out and take your first steps, and connect you with the people that are the experts in the technical skills that of the vehicle that you've chosen. So we'll get into more of that a little bit later. So the other thing we kind of talk about in more detail in the program, but I think was worth mentioning here for you now, just is that make sure that you develop all the aspects of your financial certainty. The more clarity that you can get, the better. So, review what we call your asset allocations and your techniques to automate. How, when the money comes in, are you allocating it? Is it just woohoo, we have enough and we're going to go out and buy stuff? Or is it, okay, 10% here, 20% there, 20% there, and you have a plan for each set of things? That's a very structured approach that we go over in the 8-week program that will help you maximize. And yes, leaving yourself fund money is of course important, but usually if you're at the point where you're stressed enough and you're sort of paycheck to paycheck, you don't get to that point where you can. So, but you can get out of that. So you can develop a spending plan. You can decide on how you're going to diversify. You're going to decide how you cut waste. Taking a look at all of these things, and then also your taxes, your insurance, your grants, all of those pieces. Develop a holistic plan. Don't just rely on one thing. Be a belt and suspenders kind of person where you have a backup plan. And, you want to make sure that they're specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. They're SMART goals for yourself. So that's just sort of like a general guide for you. If you need any help with any of those things, feel free to ask us about our program. I'm going to stop here just for a second, and then we will continue on into the first two of the top 5 flexible learning options for complex needs parents.